Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our subject is school, community, and teacher. It is lecture number 23, and the topic is creative and critical thinking. I am Sarfraz Ahmed from Department of Education and Psychology. Our outlines of today's lectures are introduction about critical and creative thinking, and then specific to the critical thinking, and then creative thinking, and then green and red thinking. First of all, we see that what is meant by thinking. The talking of soul with itself. This is saying by Plato. Introduction. Critical thinking. What is meant by critical thinking? Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and or evaluating information gathered from or gathered by observations, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief in action. So there are some examples. Before going to the examples, we also explain that critical thinking is a self-directed process by which we take deliberate steps to think at the highest level of quality. Here are a few examples of critical thinking, like observation. Observational skills are starting point for critical thinking, and where the analysis is concerned, once the problem has been identified, analysis skills become essential. Then inferences, then communication comes, and then problem solving. Now, the critical thinking skills involves reasoning, analyzing, decision making, problem solving, and evaluating. Now, there are different methods to improve critical thinking skills. Like ask basic questions. It is tempting to imagine that good critical thinkers ask erudite, convoluted questions when they are trying to solve a problem. Be aware of your mental process. Adjust your perspective. Think in reverse. Develop foresight. Is critical thinking natural? So critical thinking helps us balance our emotional, which in turn leads to good judgment and making informed good decisions. For the most part, critical thinking does not come naturally. It takes effort, training, and practice. Children are not born with the power to think critically, nor do they develop this ability naturally beyond survival level thinking. So, critical thinking is a learned ability that must be taught. So, most individuals never learn it. So, creativity. What is meant by creativity? First of all, why? The aim of critical thinking is to promote independent thinking, personal autonomy, and reasoned judgment in thought and actions, the ability to reason well, and the disposition to do so. Critical thinking enhances language and preparation skills. Thinking clearly and systematically can improve the way we express our ideas. In learning how to analyze the logical structure of texts, critical thinking also improves comprehension abilities. So, can you teach critical thinking? Yes, but with a certain limitations. Even within a single domain, critical thinking is a complex, higher order skills that is hard to learn and even harder to transfer across domains. Why is critical thinking so hard? Reinforce critical thinking with other skills. Wilkham makes that point that critical thinking is ineffective without an individual's factual knowledge of the given subject and their ability to find or evaluate information to help them solve problems and make decisions. Why? Why is critical thinking difficult teaching? One issue is that the common conception of the critical thinking or scientific thinking or historical thinking as a set of skills is not accurate. Critical thinking does not have certain characteristics normally associated with skills, in particular, being able to use that skills at any time. Critical thinking becomes with some RET like recognize assumptions, evaluate arguments, and draw conclusions. These are the keys to critical thinking. RET thinking. What do you mean by RET thinking? Higher order executive functioning, thinking that analyzes, assesses, and improves green thinking. And what is green thinking? Instinctive, automatic, spontaneous thinking, unconsciously guided. Now, here I would explain that how to think green. Thinking green has plenty of going for it. You are helping the planet, you spare yourself cash, you wind up more beneficial, and you feel better about yourself by basically becoming environmentally friendly. In the event that you need to proceed with the adventure toward being green, read on why it is important to be green. Creating sustainable earth is important to each and every person on the planet, regardless they will admit or not. There are numerous reasons practicing environmental awareness is imperative, from beginning services charges down to seizing the impacts of an unnatural weather change, but leaves the option of creating a sustainable ground for future generations, gives us hope of a cleaner and bright future. It is not the reasons that is important, but your actions. So, what is the meaning of going green? Green thinking means following practices that can lead to actions and lifestyles to be more environmentally friendly, which in turn helps to preserve the environment surrounding its natural resources for future and current generations. How to go green? Do not think that there is nothing you can't do to keep the planet. Human can play an important role in celebrating a clean and safe environment, which means that we can do a lot. Here, we shall explain some of the behaviors that can be followed, like changing one lamp in your home to fluorescent light can radically change your energy consumptions. Imagine if you change all the lamps, what can happen? Try to turn off your computer at night, even if you are on energy saving mode. So you are using a lot of energy. Turn off lights in the home when they are not being utilized. This by itself can cut vitality cost enormously. Take your own bags with you to the market. You diminish the utilization of plastic, and we as a whole know how risky plastic is to the earth. Recycle your trash. Not doing as much as such will develop landfills, but rather on the off chance that you do reuse your waste, you will encourage nature. Numerous things can be reused, including cardboard boxes, plastic jugs, and holders. For example, dishwashing fluid, feed bottles, so glass containers and jugs and metal jars, for example, soup cans, etc. Cars are huge energy consumptions. If you have an old car, consider purchasing another auto that is better for the earth. Stop using your car if you decide to do something other than drive. Think about the accompanying decisions: walking, biking, and using public transportations. Use less water, wash up and kill the taps appropriately, and when you are not utilizing them, particularly when you brush your teeth. Reduce the usage of fans, air conditioning, and heaters. Reduce the time you spend on electronics. Plant a tree. Use recycled products whenever you can. So this includes printer ink, paper, cupboard, etc. Reduce the amount of junk mail that you receive. Reduce your dependence on fossil fuels to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In recent years, organizations have been and are moving with a tremendous speed towards green thinking as never before. This is largely due to the great pressure from the global community. Stricter regulations and increase in all costs. However, there is still a way too low proportions of organizations that are responsible enough for their operations, because it is not enough to only follow existing regulations. Organizations are expected to show more responsibility, and the environment critically needs them to meet those expectations. The first step organizations can take to reduce their impact on the environment is to adopt eco friendly business practices. Consequently, they should be able to reduce carbon footprints, which results in better populations reputation. In any case, this is easier said than done. The main challenge is to form a plan and get the whole organizations to act upon it and support. A good reference point is to follow the three R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Being an eco friendly organization is an ongoing process that needs a clear vision of what it means and how it will be implemented. The vision creates a benchmark and indicates that the organization hopes to achieve in the near future. Now, what is red thinking? Red thinking provides integrated brand strategy, design, and digital marketing for folk who aren't afraid to be different. We work with the companies operating in residential, commercial, and mixed use real estate, finance, hospitality, food, and beverage, and the non profit sectors. Our clients know that the standing out is a good thing. They embrace the tensions and uh, relish the limelight. They are smart. They know the market is crowded and that an eye-catching brand is essential to building their bottom line. Red thinkers get noticed. At this stage, we continue to bring our grand idea down to earth. We stop and review everything. Red thinking has to do with changing gears into the conscious, more practical mode of thinking. So we review the facts, do the figures again, and allow others to offer constructive criticisms. Thinking red is about showing down to smell and the roses, patiently reviewing all that we are research, judging our ideas in the cold hard light of day. Robert Scholar, an author of numerous books concerning possibility thinking, all criticism, quality control, in the pursuit of truth. This is where we expose our precious new ideas to who? To those who are brutally honest, but will treat them with respect. With the discipline of world-class scientists, we test the ideas again and again, viewing the hypothesis from every angle. Like the crime scene investigators, we go where so thinking red is about showing down to smell the roses. With the discipline of the world class scientist, we test the ideas again and again. Thinking red requires the ruthless application of logic in order to construct an accurate view of reality. What we perceive as true does not always agree with the reality. We must search. We must search about it. Then, green thinking, we have discussed that being an eco-friendly organization is an ongoing process that needs a clearer version of what it means and how it will be implemented. It is spontaneous, it is uncontrolled, it is impulsive, it is subconscious, it is reflexive, and it is unanalyzed. Then we have studied detailed about red thinking, that it is disciplined, it is self-assessing, it is self-correcting, it seeks the truth, and it has a critical thinking, and it is probing. So, what is required? Creative work requires research, development, design, marketing and sales, global supply chain management, and routine works that is done by the people. Routine work that is done by the machines and then becomes a creative work. Then true or false? And this is option that what we do that may be true, that may be false, or everything has two aspects. We say that this or that, this and that. First of all, critical thinking is for science and mathematics. Then creative thinking is for arts and humanities. Critical and creative thinking involves students thinking broadly and deeply using skills, behaviors and dispositions such as reasons, logic, resourcefulness, imagination, and innovation in all learning areas at school and in their lives beyond schools. Creative thinking is a way of looking at problems or situations from the fresh perspectives to conceive of something new or original. Critical thinking is the logic, consequential, disciplined process of rationalization, analyzing, evaluating, and interpreting information to make informed judgment and or decisions. Critical thinking is important in life and helps you to think creatively outside the box. It keeps you from becoming narrow rather than relying on teachers and classroom time for instruction and guidance. Students with critical thinking skills become more independent, self directed learners. Critical and creative thinking can and should be applied to any subjects, content, or creative thinking requires divergent thinking and then convergent thinking. Creativity can be taught. Practicing promotes more creativity. There are some strategies for teaching critical and creative thinking. What are those strategies? First of all, fluency means thinking of and listening many ideas. Then flexibility, thinking from different perspectives. Then originality means coming up with the unique ideas. Then elaboration, building upon an existing idea, adding details. Then there is some role of teacher. What is role of teacher? Means creative or critical. Thinking is a skill that young minds will undeniably need and exercise well beyond their school's years. Experts agree that in keeping up with the overchanging technological advances, students will need to obtain, understand, and analyze information on a much more efficient scale. It is our job as educators to equip our students with the strategies and skills they need to think critically in order to cope with these tech problems and obstacles they face elsewhere. So, thinking involves people, knowledge, innovation. Imagination is more important than knowledge. This is saying by Albert Einstein. This is famous saying of Thomas Carlyle that go as far as you can see. When you get there, you can see further. This lesson, thank you. Allah Hafiz.